I first heard their voices again on a Sunday morning, just as the bell above the door chimed the start of my favorite ritual, Mia's homemade cinnamon pancakes, and the faint hiss of the espresso machine brewing our coffee. I glanced at my phone, expecting a message from my sister in California, where she lived with her own little family. Instead, the screen glowed with a name I hadn't seen in my contacts for nearly 4 years. Alma, the word I'd whispered as a child to the woman who raised me. My heart thundered. I hadn't spoken to her since I told my parents I was marrying outside our Punjabi community. Back then, I still believed blood ties were unbreakable. I was wrong. I took a deep breath and tapped the notification. A single line of text stared back at me. Arjun, you and Mia are invited to our home for dinner next Saturday. We would like to meet Asha and Ravi. I stared at the words. Asha and Ravi, our 2 children, 6 and 4, unaware of the storm their existence had stirred. Mia peeked over my shoulder. "What is it?" she asked, brushing a stray curl behind her ear. "It's from my mother." Her fork hovered in midair. "Is she okay?" I forced a small smile. "She says they want to meet the kids." Mia's eyes widened. "After all this time?" I nodded. My mind spun back to that night, 4 years ago, when I'd brought her home to introduce her as my fiancée. My parents' living room had felt colder than the London fog outside. Alma had sat on the edge of the sofa, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles had gone white. My father's arms were folded, his brow furrowed in silent disapproval. When Mia offered her hand to Alma, Alma had looked away. "It's not that we don't like you," Alma had said, voice trembling but firm. "But your family, your traditions, they matter. We don't know how to welcome you into our world." At that moment, I should have reached out and told my mother that love doesn't demand permission. I should have held Mia's hand and shown them that differences can be bridges, not barriers. Instead, I stood frozen, torn between filial duty and the woman I loved. My failure to speak up shattered the fragile bridge before it ever formed. By the time I managed to apologize, the damage was done. A week later, my phone went silent. They cut me off completely. No calls on my birthday, no wedding gift in the mail, no family gathering invitations. It was as if I'd fallen off the map of their lives. For a long time, I carried that silence like a wound. Every crack in our relationship with my family mirrored a deeper fear inside me, that by breaking tradition, I had lost both my heritage and the woman I most wanted to share it with. Yet Mia and I persisted. We leaned on each other, built a life together in our little flat, and eventually, 2 beautiful children came into the world to cement our bond. But now, after years of quiet exile, here was my mother's olive branch. Or perhaps a gauntlet thrown down. I could almost hear the ticking of an old grandfather clock, counting down the seconds to a decision that might heal, or reopen, the deepest cut of my life. That afternoon, I walked through the neighborhood park with Asha perched on my shoulders and Ravi scampering at my heels. The sun filtered through new spring leaves, painting fragments of green light on the path. Asha chattered about a school play. Ravi counted the squirrels he spotted in the trees. Their laughter was a balm to my anxiety. "Mama sent us a text," I told Mia later, as we settled onto the couch after bedtime stories. "She wants to see the kids." Mia's eyes softened. "Do you want to go?" I hesitated. I remembered the last time I saw her, at my brother's wedding, 3 years ago, when I'd refused to attend because they wouldn't acknowledge Mia. My absence had been a final refusal, a line drawn in unforgiving sand. Even now, I wasn't sure I could step across it. "I don't know," I admitted. "I'm afraid of what will happen." She took my hand. "What do you think will happen?" I closed my eyes. "I think they'll tell me I've disappointed them, that I've dishonored my family." I think they'll ask me to leave Mia and the kids behind. Mia squeezed my hand. Or maybe they've changed. Maybe they finally want to be a part of our lives. I forced a smile. Maybe. That night, I lay awake listening to the soft hum of the radiator, wrestling with memories of my childhood. I remembered Alma's laughter as she braided my hair for school, the scent of her in the kitchen as she cooked parathas and dal. I remembered my father's deep voice reciting Punjabi proverbs in the evenings. Every recollection was a bittersweet reminder of what I risked by choosing a different path. Ultimately, I made a decision born of hope and fear in equal measure. I would reply to my mother's text. I would accept her invitation. But I would go on my terms, with Mia and the children by my side, ready to stand firm for the family I had created. The week that followed felt suspended in tension. I rewrote my reply a dozen times. Thank you for the invitation. We would be honored to join you next Saturday. We'll come as a family, Mia, Asha, Ravi, and me. Please let us know the time. Finally, I hit send. Within minutes, another message arrived. 7 p.m. We'll prepare a special dinner. We look forward to seeing all of you. That evening, I rehearsed introductions in my head. I practiced polite responses to any criticism that might come. I even laid out a new kurta for myself, hoping the familiar patterns would signal respect for our culture. But beneath the surface, my heart pounded with a different question. Could love, the very force that had torn me away from my family, now be powerful enough to bring us back together? The week that followed moved in slow motion, every day marked by a growing knot of dread in my chest. I went through my morning routine on autopilot: coffee, school lunches, rushed goodbyes, while my mind replayed the upcoming dinner in a loop. What would they say when they saw Mia's skin tone beside mine? Would my father's gaze linger on the soft curve of Asha's cheek? Would my mother struggle to meet Ravi's hopeful eyes? Saturday arrived in a blur of sunlight and nerves. I ironed my kurta until its rich navy fabric shone, folded it neatly over the arm of a chair, and double-checked my children's outfits. Asha in a pale yellow frock, ribbons braided into her hair, Ravi in tiny trousers, and a crisp white shirt buttoned all the way up. Mia looked radiant in a simple salwar kameez, her smile steady but her hands trembling slightly as she secured Asha's hair clip. "Are you okay?" I asked, brushing a kiss against her temple. She inhaled deeply. "As okay as one can be before facing the ghosts of childhood." Then, with a wry grin, "Let's do this." At 6:45 p.m., we pulled up to my parents' house, a modest brick townhouse with flower boxes beneath each window, exactly as I remembered from my youth. For a moment I paused at the gate, closing my eyes and inhaling the scent of honeysuckle mixed with city traffic. It felt both familiar and foreign, like a dream half remembered. I rang the doorbell. The chime echoed inside. Mia squeezed my hand. Asha clutched my kurta. Ravi hopped on the balls of his feet. The door opened. Alma stood in the foyer, her sari draped perfectly over one shoulder, eyes wide and glistening. For the first time since our estrangement, she looked more relieved than resentful. My heart lurched as she stepped forward and embraced me, her cheek warm against mine. "Beta," she whispered, my child's nickname. "We've missed you." My throat tightened. "I've missed you too, Alma." She peered past me at Mia, her gaze flickering with uncertainty before she offered a tentative smile. "Mia G," she said, bowing her head slightly. "Welcome home." Mia's face softened. She dipped into a graceful curtsy. "Thank you," she replied, voice steady. "It's good to be here." Behind us, my father emerged from the living room, his broad shoulders framing the doorway. He looked at me with a mixture of pride and grief, as if he were measuring how much time had passed in the lines on his face. He nodded once, brief, almost imperceptible, before extending his hand to Mia. "Naresh Singh," he said formally. Mia took his hand in both of hers, and I felt the first crack in the wall between us. We stepped inside. The familiar scent of chapati and simmering spices greeted us, a melody of cumin, coriander, and simmered lamb that awakened memories of countless family meals. The dining room was set with polished silverware, vibrant marigold centerpieces, and delicate glassware that caught the light. Amma guided us to our seats. Asha and Ravi settled on small chairs beside their grandmother, pressing tiny hands into her sari's hem. I sat across from my father, Mia beside me, our fingers brushing under the table. For a moment, the room was silent except for the click of a clock on the mantel. Then Amma lifted a covered dish and placed it before us. "I made your favorite, gobi partha," she said softly. "And I hope you like the dal makhni, Amma's special recipe." Mia tasted a partha and closed her eyes with pleasure. "It's perfect," she said, voice full of warmth. My chest tightened. I could feel tears pricking at the corners of my eyes, at the simple act of sharing food. Conversation unfolded haltingly at first. Amma asked about the children's school. My father inquired after my job. Mia described her new art project. Each question was careful, measured, as if they were testing the water before diving in deeper. When the children, bored by polite small talk, began to fidget, Amma scooped up Ravi onto her lap and tickled his belly, prompting giggles. Asha demonstrated a dance step she'd learned at school, and my father, the stoic patriarch, smiled, his stern exterior melting as he clapped along. I felt the warmth of belonging settle around me, a cloak I'd half forgotten I missed. But equilibrium always teeters on a knife's edge. As plates were cleared and dessert, rasmalai, brought out on a silver tray, Amma's smile faltered ever so slightly. Taking a deep breath, she set her tray down. "Arjun," she said, voice steady but soft, "we have questions." My heart seized. "This time, I want to understand. Why did you choose a life so different from the one we offered? What changed in your heart?" I looked into her eyes, the same eyes that had once shone with pride as they watched me take my first steps. I reached across the table for her hand. "Amma, I chose Mia because she made my world brighter. She stands by me, loves me for who I am. I wanted our children to grow up in a home built on love, not just tradition." My father folded his arms. "Tradition is more than custom. It is our identity. Our community's strength comes from shared roots." I swallowed, steadying myself. "I understand that. But love and respect can be our roots too. Mia has learned our languages, our customs. Asha sings Punjabi lullabies. Ravi calls you Nani already." Amma's lips quivered. "Yes, they do. But will you honor our festivals? Will you teach them the stories of our ancestors? Or will they be lost between worlds?" Mia took a breath. "I promise to teach them everything, our culture, our history. I see them as our bridge to the future, a future where two worlds coexist." Silence fell again. I could feel the tension coiling like a spring. Then, slowly, Amma nodded. My father uncrossed his arms. The family that had once turned away from me was considering opening its arms again. That night, as we drove away under a moonlit sky, Asha and Ravi fell asleep in the back seat, heads resting against the car windows. Mia pressed her cheek to my shoulder. "How do you feel?" she whispered. "Torn," I admitted. "But hopeful." She smiled. "It's a start." I glanced in the rearview mirror at their sleeping faces, two little souls born of love and courage. And I knew that whether my family fully embraced us or not, we would remain steadfast in our own love, guided by the promise we'd made to each other, that our children would know both where they came from and where they were going. The following weekend dawned clear and crisp. I awoke to the comforting aroma of cardamom chai, drifting up from the kitchen, where Alma was already bustling about. Through the doorway, I watched her carefully roll dough for chapati, her movements graceful and practiced, as though time had never paused for our estrangement. "Mornings are sacred," she said without looking up, handing me a steaming cup. "I hope you and your family will join us for the Baisakhi celebration at the temple today." I glanced at Mia and the children, who were crowded around the breakfast table. Asha was tracing a sketch of the Golden Temple. Ravi insisted it was a castle with magic walls. Mia caught my eye and gave me a small, encouraging smile. This was the next step, a public acknowledgement of our place in the community. At the Gurdwara, the courtyard buzzed with activity. Bright banners flapped in the breeze, and volunteers in orange vests directed streams of worshippers toward the entrance. Mia adjusted Asha's salwar, smoothing the pleats of Ravi's turban. I slipped my arm around them, feeling as if we were stepping into a new chapter together. Inside, we removed our shoes and covered our heads. The children clutched my fingers tightly as we joined the line for the Langar Hall, where the entire congregation would dine together. Alma swept past us into the prayer hall, settling in the front row. My father appeared beside her, his demeanor composed, though I caught the faintest tremor in his hands as he adjusted his scarf. The curtain began, melodic hymns rising and falling like waves. In that moment, the words, "Ik Onkar," felt like a refrain of unity, reminding me that we were all connected beyond any cultural boundary. I glanced at my family. Alma closed her eyes, swaying gently. My father's stern facade melted into serene contemplation. Mia's lips moved in quiet prayer. The children echoed her softly, repeating lines they had learned. After the service, we filed into the Langar Hall. Volunteers ladled steaming dal and rice onto steel plates, smiling warmly at Asha and Ravi. I watched, heart swelling, as my mother moved from group to group, serving tea with one hand and wiping a child's tears with the other. When she reached our table, she knelt beside Asha, gently brushing a stray lock of hair from her face. "Your Nani missed this," Alma said softly, pressing Asha's hand. On our way out, Aunt Ghislaine, one of my mother's elder sisters, approached us. She wore a heavy silk sari, jewels clicking at her wrists, and her expression was measured. "It's good to see you all here," she said, voice polite but cool. She paused before Mia. "You honor our traditions, Mrs. Singh." Mia inclined her head. "Thank you." Aunt Ghislaine turned to me. "Arjun, we've watched how your children embrace both worlds. You've done well." She placed a cool hand on my shoulder. Acceptance, at last, from someone whose opinion had weighed heavily on me. That afternoon, back at my parents' home, the family gathered in the garden for a small feast. Someone strung marigold garlands across the patio. Others set out bowls of kheer and jalebi. Laughter rippled through the air as cousins chased each other between tables. Even my father, who rarely spoke more than a handful of words at a time, joined in, recounting a childhood prank that had everyone roaring. At one point, Ravi spotted a clutch of rose petals on the ground. He scooped them up and toddled over to my father, offering a handful. My father accepted them with a gentle nod, ruffling Ravi's hair. "Thank you, little one," he murmured. In that instant, I realized the depth of what had shifted. The wall between us was still there, but it had cracks, through which love and forgiveness could seep. As twilight descended, Alma stood and tapped a spoon against a glass. The chatter subsided. With her free hand, she reached for mine. "I know we have much to learn," she began, eyes on Mia and me. "And there will be days when we stumble. But today, I choose family." A hush fell. My father released his breath, old tension easing from his shoulders. He took my hand next, then Mia's. Together, we formed a circle under the soft glow of lanterns. I closed my eyes and bowed my head, overwhelmed by gratitude. the scent of marigolds, the murmur of forgiveness, the promise of new traditions. These gifts were more precious than any blessing I had ever known. When we finally parted that evening, Asha fell asleep against my chest in the car, and Ravi's head lolled against Mia's shoulder. I looked at Mia and felt our shared triumph. We had bridged two worlds, and in doing so, had begun to heal old wounds. Yet even as hope surged within me, I knew the path ahead would not always be so smooth. There would be nights of doubt, moments of criticism, traditions yet unlearned. But now we had proof that love, steadfast, compassionate, and open, could guide us forward. And so, as we drove away from my childhood home, I whispered into the quiet, "Together, we will build a place for all of us." The change in our family dynamic was gradual, like the first fragile shoots of spring pushing through cold earth. In the week after the Baisakhi celebration, Amma began sending me links to Punjabi folk songs, suggesting they listen together so she could teach the lyrics. My father offered to drop the children off at weekend language classes at the community center. Cousins who had once avoided eye contact now waved enthusiastically whenever we crossed paths on the sidewalk. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the rooftops, Amma invited us over for chai and samosas. We gathered once more in that cozy living room, the air fragrant with cardamom and fried pastry. Asha perched on Amma's lap, swirling her spoon through a cup of milk tea, while Ravi clutched a samosa half as big as his head. "I've found some old photographs," Amma said, rising to fetch a small album from a low cabinet. She returned and settled back onto the sofa, opening the book to reveal black and white snapshots of my childhood, me toddling in a sleeveless sweater, my first birthday celebration with bright balloons, my grandfather teaching me how to fly a kite. Sophia leaned forward. "These are beautiful, Amma." She nodded. "I kept them safe in case you ever wanted to remember." Then she turned the pages to reveal photos of my mother on her wedding day, intricate bridal jewelry, vibrant red sari, her shy smile as she clasped my father's hand. "Traditions hold stories," she said softly. "We want our grandchildren to know these stories, too." I realized in that moment how much had shifted. We were no longer visitors in my parents' home, but participants in a shared history. Mia studied each image with the children, explaining the clothing, the rituals, the significance of each colorful ornament. I watched my family connect across generations and cultures, bridging the gap that had once seemed insurmountable. After the album was returned to its place, my father cleared his throat. "We've been talking," he said, glancing at Amma, "and we realize we made mistakes. We should have welcomed Mia and supported you both when you first asked." Tears welled in my mother's eyes as my father continued. "Love does not weaken tradition, it enriches it. We understand now that you have created something beautiful. Our heritage lives on through your children, in their laughter and their names." Mia reached out, taking both their hands. "Thank you isn't enough, but it's all I have right now. You've given us acceptance, and that means everything." Our laughter rippled through the room, easing any lingering tension. Even the solemn promise of acceptance took on a warm, playful light in the children's eyes. Before we left that night, Amma pressed a small package into Mia's hands. "I made these," she said. Inside, wrapped in soft tissue, were two tiny, hand-embroidered scarves, one in pastel pink for Asha, one in sky blue for Ravi, each edged with delicate gold thread. "For them to wear on special days, so they carry our blessing with them." Mia hugged the scarves close, her face shining. "They'll wear them with pride." When we walked back to our car under the star-speckled sky, I felt an unfamiliar lightness. The weight of estrangement that had once pressed on my chest had lifted, replaced by a quiet joy. Over the next few days, we wove these new threads of connection into our daily lives. At bedtime, Mia read my mother's favorite Punjabi poems to the children, singing the verses so they'd learn the melody. I shared stories of my own childhood adventures, of kite-flying competitions and Ramadan feasts in my neighbors' homes, reminding them that our family story included many voices. One afternoon, as I helped Asha with her homework, she looked up and asked, "Papa, will Nani and Papa come to my school play next month?" My heart swelled. "Yes, Beta," I replied. "They'll be right there in the front row, cheering the loudest." Her eyes sparkled with excitement. "I can't wait!" That night, Mia and I sat on the balcony, listening to the distant hum of traffic and the soft chirping of crickets. I sipped tea while she gently massaged her temple, still tired from guiding the children through their lessons. "I've never felt this whole before," she said after a long pause. "It's like our family has grown twice, once when we had the children, and now again as we heal old wounds." I reached across and took her hand. "We've built something stronger than I ever imagined. A family that honors both where we came from and where we're going." She leaned her head on my shoulder. "Thank you for choosing me," she whispered. I kissed the top of her head. "Thank you for staying." As the night deepened around us, I realized that our journey was far from over. There would be challenges ahead, differences to navigate, expectations to balance, and new traditions to define. But beneath it all, there was a foundation of love, now firmly rooted in understanding and acceptance. And that, I knew, would guide us into the chapters yet unwritten. Spring arrived again, and with it came Asha's school play, an adaptation of a Punjabi folk tale that she had rehearsed for weeks. On the morning of the performance, she awoke at dawn, her tiny face alight with excitement. She tugged on the hand-embroidered scarf Nanny had given her, smoothing its pastel pink folds so that the gold thread caught the light just right. Across town, in my parents' living room, Amma and Papa were similarly animated. My father fussed over the front door wreath of marigolds, while my mother arranged small gift bags of homemade laddus and tulsi tea for the other families. They had insisted on arriving early at the school to save the best seats for ourselves, Amma joked, after proudly telling every neighbor and shopkeeper they encountered that their granddaughter would be on stage that evening. By 6 p.m., the auditorium was packed. Parents of every background chatted in the foyer, and children flitted around in colorful costumes. Mia and I slipped into our seats just as the lights dimmed. Asha stood at center stage, clad in a bright yellow kurta and a matching dupatta, her curly hair pinned back with tiny jasmine flowers. Next to her was Ravi, playing the mischievous monkey, complete with fuzzy ears and a tail that swished whenever he leapt. Amma leaned forward, eyes shining. My father, seated stiffly beside her, wiped his throat with a handkerchief as the music began. I reached for Mia's hand, and she squeezed back with a smile. The play unfolded in lyrical narration of a wise king, a loyal monkey, and the power of compassion triumphing over greed. When Ravi scampered across the stage to fetch a golden coconut prop, the crowd laughed at his antics. When Asha delivered her lines with unexpected confidence, her little voice ringing clear, the audience broke into spontaneous applause. And when, at the finale, the children joined hands to enact the moment of forgiveness, the hall echoed with cheers and stomps that shook the seats. As the curtain fell, Amma rose to her feet, clapping with genuine delight. My father joined her, his proud smile softening the stern lines of his face. I felt tears prick my eyes as they motioned for the children to take their bows again and again. Backstage, Asha threw her arms around her grandparents. "Did you see me?" she squealed. "You were perfect," Nani whispered, kissing her forehead. Papa ruffled Ravi's hair. "And you were the best monkey we've ever seen." Mia and I exchanged glances, our hearts full. Afterward, we mingled with other families as Papa distributed his laddus, and Amma poured chai from a thermos into paper cups. Cousins and neighbors approached to congratulate Arjun, praising his well-spoken daughter and little star. For the first time in my life, I felt a seamless blending of the two worlds I had once feared would remain forever apart. A few days later, my parents surprised us again with an informal naming ceremony in our garden. They invited a small circle of family friends and community elders. As the late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the lawn, Papa began the ceremony by reciting traditional blessings in Punjabi. Amma then led the children in a playful song of gratitude, her voice steady and bright. When it was our turn, Mia spoke from the heart about how grateful she was for the family we had created, one that honored both her Western roots and our Indian heritage. Then I placed my hand on each of my parents' shoulders. "Thank you for coming back," I said softly. "Thank you for learning with us. Most of all, thank you for showing my children the power of forgiveness and love." Amma's eyes glistened. "Our hearts were always yours," she replied. "We only needed time to open them again." As dusk fell and lanterns flickered to life among the flowering jasmine vines, we shared a meal of biryani, fresh naan, and sweet mango lassi. Laughter rose in the air like smoke, carrying with it the promise that our family, once fractured, was now truly whole. That night, as I helped Mia tuck the children into bed, Asha pressed her forehead against mine. "Will Nani and Papa stay for dinner tomorrow?" she asked sleepily. "Yes," I whispered. "They'll be right here with us, every day." Mia kissed my cheek. "We did it," she murmured. "Yes," I agreed, gazing at the two little faces drifting off to sleep. "We built a bridge sturdy enough for all of us to cross, together." In the silence that followed, I realized that our story, from painful exile to gentle reunion, had become more than just a family saga. It was a testament to the idea that love, when nurtured with patience and respect, can transform the deepest divides into paths of connection. And as I closed the door behind me, I knew our future would be shaped not by the boundaries we once feared, but by the open arms we now welcomed on both sides of our shared horizon.